Hello and welcome to the Mona Shorts Fest workshop number 3, how to film a short monologue in Mona. I'm Paradox and I've worked in the TV and film industry for most of my career, but for the last 3 years I've been full-time Metaverse as a videographer. I've shot hundreds of Metaverse events and I've edited for loads of big Metaverse organisations and community projects. I still shoot in the real world, mostly Metaverse meetups and conferences, stuff like that, but by and large I have mostly transitioned completely to being a virtual videographer, which is really nice. So today I'm going to cover tons of tips and tricks and workflows for shooting video in the Monaverse. This workshop is for everyone, whether you're a seasoned Mona creator or completely new to Mona, we've got you covered. I've always found Mona is an absolutely stunning canvas to create story in video form. We want you to feel inspired to create in Mona as a virtual builder, but also to be inspired to enter the Mona Shorts Film Fest. I'm going to break down this workshop into 4 parts, or 4 acts if you will. And that is going to be Act 1, Mona orientation. So I'll go over things like how to first enter the Monaverse, take a look around at the user interface, how to select an avatar, and also a couple of hotkeys which you'll find really useful when recording. On to Act 2, we'll be recording your voiceover. So I'll cover some software that you could use to get started for audio recording, and I'll also record the audio for our tutorial monologue here too. Act 3 is filming in world in Mona, how to screen record with one avatar. This one's my personal favourite, and this is where I'll give you some tips and tricks for screen recording and specifically how to get those cool slow shots in Mona. Then in Act 4 we're going to cover some basic video and audio editing, and that's going to be of the footage that we collect in the Monaverse during the tutorial, and that will be our tutorial monologue. Now before we get started I wanted to talk about some background context for the judging criteria for the mini challenges and for the main MSF entries. And I want you to keep these statistics in mind when you're creating your content. So 20% of the Mona Shorts Fest main challenge judging criteria is for Monaverse production and edit. So that's things like the quality of screen recording, the smoothness of the shots, the quality of the video editing, the pacing of the edit, the structure, and finally things like sound design. So that's really, really important, and that makes up 20%. So for next week's mini challenge, 30% is the monologue clarity. So is the monologue clear and concise? Another 30% is narrative intrigue. So does it captivate us and make us want to see the story unfold? And lastly, there is 20%, and that is emotional impact. Does it invoke a strong emotional response from the audience? Okay, so let's officially start Act 1, the first part, which is the Mona orientation. So the first thing we are going to do is head over to monaverse.com. So the first thing you're going to see is our lovely site here. Along the top you can see Explore, About, and Marketplace and Sign In. Now these are really important, but we'll get to them in just a second. So let's just scroll down here a little bit. You can see we can enter some worlds. So later on we're going to be exploring some worlds, and we encourage you to do that as well. We want you to explore as many as possible to kind of get those fantastic film sets. There's really like loads of choice. So what you're going to want to do is sign in. So let's click this button here. Okay, you're going to be confronted with a connect a wallet to get started. So because Monaverse is using the blockchain, it's going to want to connect onto a blockchain. So we would highly recommend you use one of these. Well, you have to, MetaMask or Wallet Connect. I'm going to be using MetaMask. That's what I'm most comfortable with. MetaMask is a digital wallet and it's a hot wallet on your browser. You should do some reading if you don't know what that is about, but if you don't have a wallet, you can go get one here. And this takes you to the MetaMask page here. And there's tons of good tutorials here and bits and pieces to get you familiar with what you're actually interacting with. Okay, so back to this MetaMask area. So I'm going to click MetaMask, and what it's going to do is it's going to bring up, this is after you've made your MetaMask wallet. So it's going to prompt you to log in. So I'm going to type my password in. Okay, and then we're going to log in. Now, this is a good sign. It asks you to sign in with a signature. So if you're new to crypto, this is really important. You always read what this says. It's definitely a security thing. Mona is a trusted site, so that's fine. But just a tip for security: don't go signing into random sites with these crypto wallets. Yeah, it's a dangerous thing to do. So always know the source. It's the same way you wouldn't go to dodgy scam sites, right? So just always read this information. So this says, only sign this message you will fully understand the content and trust the requesting site, which we do because we know it's the Monaverse. So I'm going to sign in. Okay, cool. So what'd be great for everyone to do is, if you see this little sign up here, this is kind of your profile. So let's click that. And what we're going to do is we're going to go to profile, and you can edit your profile up here, and you can change your usernames and bits, and this is what will show up in world so people know who you are. I'm going to save that. Okay, cool. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to the main site now. Okay, so before we start diving into some worlds and exploring, I want to bring your attention to this about button at the top. So I'm going to click this, and you'll see the top one is how it works. I'm going to click this. So this takes us to the Mona documents, and this is an absolute goldmine of information. And if you're ever getting lost in how to create in Mona, or how to use VRM avatars, or setting up your wallet, there's tons of information here. So this is kind of like your Bible for all things Mona. So really put a lot of stock on this and keep coming back to this. It's amazing. Right, so let's look at explore. So here we can explore different spaces, or we can explore avatars. So Mona has its own avatar marketplace and its own spaces marketplace. But if I go to spaces here, so if you see along left here, you can actually filter these by just looking for avatars. So you can see all these amazing avatars. A lot of these are for sale. Or you can go by space. So let's just have a quick look. I love Neon City Streets, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click Neon City Streets, and it's going to bring us up to this kind of this space page here. And there's a lovely button here saying enter space. So let's go ahead and do that. And this will be, for some of you, the first time you ever jump into a Monaverse world. Okay, so we are in. Now, a couple of things are going to pop up on screen you need to be aware of. You've got this handy kind of this note at the bottom which tells you some controls. So you can use the WAS or D keys to move around, but you can also use your arrow keys as well. Okay, and we are back. So the tip at the bottom is saying you can press the H key, and that is really, really helpful. So let's go ahead and do that. So in the H key, it brings up some I guess the controls you can see on the left. You can move your mouse to move around. You've got the WASD. You can also jump. Definitely have a look through some of these, and we're going to be coming back to some of these settings for filming in the metaverse, in the Monaverse. What I'd suggest is, if you're unfamiliar with a lot of these things, stay with 30 frame rate. You can play around with anti-aliasing if you want, if you know what you're doing, but generally I would leave it how it is. You can play around with some of these, like your bloom intensity. So let's see what that does. Can you see, I'm just going to exit this menu for a second. Can you see everything's kind of gone fluffy? Is that the right word? Yeah. So as a filming effect, you might want this. It's quite nice. There's also motion blur. So if I ramp that all the way up to the top and then I run around, can you see that it's very, well, blurry. And that's kind of like a filmic effect. You might want to employ this if you're doing like an action scene or something. It's quite cinematic. So let's go back to that menu. You've got, however you say this, chromatic aberration. So let's ramp this all the way up. So what this does, can you see around the edges of the screen here? It gives this kind of cool, kind of blurry effect. That's something else you may want to do. I'm going to go back to the H key, and then you can change your field of view. And that, if you can see, that basically zooms you in and out. And just so you know, you can do this with your mouse wheel as well. So I'm just scrolling in and out with my mouse. Okay, cool. On the right here, you've got your main volume, your voice chat volume, and your live stream canvas. So the main volume will be like the music in the scene. The voice chat will be if anyone else is in the scene with you. you can hear them talking, and you can kind of raise that volume there. And then you've got the live stream canvas. So if there is a potentially at an event there is like a big screen that's playing a presentation or a film, you can kind of change the volume on here as well. So that's pretty good. Okay, so that is your H key, and there's some settings. For the most part, you can leave a lot of those on default if you want to. That's completely up to you. But let's look at the main things you're going to be looking at in the user interface. The first one is a host hangout. Now, if you want to be filming with multiple characters with your friends, then you're going to want to do that. And you can, what it will do is you can click host hangout, and essentially it is copied a hangout link to your clipboard, and you can then copy and paste that link to your friends, and they will be able to join in with you. You can, and this share link button is basically the same. It automatically copy that link for you, but later on if you're playing and you want to get that link again, you can click this and it will copy it into your clipboard, so you can copy and paste that to your friends. But the big one is avatar. So if you click the avatar button, what it's going to do is it's going to say choose your avatar, explore the marketplace for more avatar options. So you can either connect to your Mona wallet if you've bought NFTs that are avatars from Mona potentially, and you can use them in your scene, or you can import your own custom VRM. Okay, so let's quickly click import VRM. So VRMs are essentially an interoperable avatar kind of file format, like a 3D character format that can be used across the metaverse, and Mona does accept them. So if you have a link, you can copy and paste this in, and it will load in your avatar. So you can get these file formats, these links for VRMs from the Mona Marketplace if you buy from there, but there's also lots of options online. What we'll do is we'll link to some of these other sites that you can get them, some for free even, some for sort of CCO licenses. We'll link them in the workshop documents. Ready Player Me is like a third-party partner that Mona uses, and what you can do is you can, by default, you can find and use a whole load of decent avatars. So let's pick through it, shall we? You can also make an account with Ready Player Me, so it will save all your settings and save those avatars. But for now, let's just go and pick one here. So I'm going to say don't specify. So for best results, take a selfie. We're not going to do that, but you can do that. And what it does is it's quite clever. It kind of looks at your image and then kind of makes an image, an avatar that looks similar to you. But what we're going to do is we're going to go continue without a photo. Let's just go with the first one for now. But as you can see, there are plenty of kind of defaults to choose from. But let's go with this first one for now. It's going to load now, and then you've got loads of options here. So you can change your skin color. You can change the face shape. So let's pick one here. That's quite fun. You can do everything from changing the eyes. You can change the nose. As you can see, so there's eyebrows here. Should we give her a beard? Okay. Okay. Cool. And you can change the hair. I like this one. That looks quite... I've left over mustache. That's fine for now. Let's go back to the hair. Yeah, that's quite good. Okay, I want to give her some cool shades. There we go, and we're going to go and add a little bit of face paint as well. There you go. This is yeah, only in the metaverse. You can add things like masks and stuff. This stuff. Actually, let's add one of these, like a Monaverse VR headset. That's pretty cool. And we give her a hat as well, but I think that'll get rid of the headset. So let's have a look. Oh no, okay, it's taken out the hair. Okay, I like it. Let's go next. Actually, let's go back and just change her outfit. So let's pick something nice. I love this one, if it's the one I think it is. Okay, cool. Excellent. And we're going to click next, because that's great. So what it's going to do is it's going to prepare your avatar. And in a minute, this should pop in with your new avatar. And there we have it. We have our avatar. So looking pretty good. Okay. Okay, so now we have our avatar. I want to show you a couple of tips and tricks here of keyboard commands which will really help. So you can see this little dot right in the middle of the screen. That's used for like selecting interactive elements in the Monaverse. But for filming, we don't want it to be there because it doesn't look very pretty. So you can press the I key and it disappears. So that's one really good tip. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is to filming is we want to get rid of this UI at the bottom because it doesn't look very filmic having that in your shot. You can press the U key and that gets rid of that. So all we're left with now is the chat box. Currently there's not a way to turn off the chat box. I believe that's coming soon, but what we can do is we can hold down the control button and press the minus key. I think it's command minus on a Mac, and basically it shrinks it. So it's quite out the way, and later on we can zoom in the footage by a tiny amount and get rid of that. Okay, there actually is one more thing on our screen that we don't want to be there, and that is my name tag. And the simple way of getting rid of that is pressing the N key. There we go. And that is my name tag gone. Press it again, it pops back on. Okay, but what we want to do now is we want to play with something called the emote wheel. So we need to get our UI back, so let's press the U key again. And everything's quite small, so I'm going to Control plus to make that bigger again. There we go. So let's play with our emotes. Now, so you get the emote wheel, I believe it's C. There we go, it's the C key. And this gives us a whole host of different kind of emotes and gestures that we can do. There's the Mona emotes, which is kind of the default ones. And then we've had some community emotes that have gone in too. So let's take a quick look at this. So we can try a bit of dancing. Let's press the C key again. Let's try the overhead wave. There we go. Let's press C key again. And let's go to community. This one's fun. Mind blowing by Happy Arch. Yeah. Spinning dinosaur. That's great. Okay, cool. So this is kind of where you can get some emotion into your scenes. You kind of have to play around with this and kind of see which ones kind of work for you. And lastly, I want to show you the Z key. So I'm going to press Z now. And that brings up our emojis. So there's no reason why you can't use this in your movie to show emotion. We can't have moving lips. And there's a limited amount of emotes. So why not use something like this? I think it's a fun way to do it. And there's quite a few more options. Okay, and that just about does it for our Mona orientation. Okay, so now we have a rough idea of the capabilities of our virtual set and actors. The next segment is all about recording your voiceover. So when shooting scenes in the Monaverse, I personally prefer to record the audio first. And the reason I do this is it helps to establish the pacing for the scene later on during the edit, the video edit. So some of you may prefer to record your audio live whilst you shoot, similar to how a film would shoot a scene in real life. And if you want to do that, that's completely fine. It's purely preference. However, metaverse worlds don't tend to have actors with moving lips, so we have the luxury of being able to record and edit our audio, then take our time and plan our shots and shoot video to place in our edit afterwards. There's absolutely tons of audio recording software out there that you can use. Many of it's free, or you could even record your audio on your phone if you wanted. It's completely up to you. I like to use a piece of free software called Audacity. We've linked to a great 5-minute tutorial in the workshop documents, but let's quickly cover the very basics of Audacity just to get you started. So simply head over to audacityteam.org, choose if you want to download for a Mac or PC, get that downloaded and install it the same way you would any other piece of software. Okay, so let's launch the software and show you around. Okay, so here we are in Audacity. It's a really simple user interface. The first thing you're going to do is set up your microphone. So we're going to go up here to Audio Setup, and we're going to go down to Audio Settings. So it brings up the audio settings. We're going to select our recording device. Just check this is correct. This is just the microphone input I use. And just make sure that's set for you, whatever your microphone is, and then click OK. And then it means we've got this big red button here. So if I click record, there we go. We can see my levels pinging up and down. So testing 1 2 3, testing 1 2 3. Okay, I'm going to click stop, and then I can play back. Good. There we go. We can see my levels pinging up and down. Brilliant. And if you want to just say, if I want to take out this section of audio, I can just highlight it with the left mouse button and click delete. Brilliant. So then you can edit your audio however you want. You can really get into the weeds with effects and everything, but for now, this is all you need. So what we're gonna do is double click. So we've got it, we're selecting everything, and we're gonna go up here to File and Export. And we're gonna export as a WAV. That's just a slightly higher quality audio format than MP3. So let's go ahead. Okay, so I am going to save this as Mona Test Audio, just for now, and then I'm going to click Save. And then click OK. And there we go. Okay, so here's the track. Click Record. There we go. We can see my levels pinging up and down. Brilliant. And that is how you record in Audacity. Cool. So we encourage you to write your own material, but for the purpose of today's tutorial, we are going to be using a scripted scene from the film La La Land. Now, I'm not a lady, so I'd much prefer to use a feminine voice for the monologue, so I'm going to be using a third-party application, which is an AI text-to-voice tool called Murph.ai. So you don't have to use any third-party tools, I'm just going to use it for the tutorial. So I'll be able to post a script onto the site, and then I will generate a female voice for me using AI technology, which is pretty cool. I personally like Murph, but you can use any third-party tool you'd like to get the job done, or not at all. So they all tend to have free demos, but you need to have a paid plan to export any audio for filmmaking generally for these sort of tools. And this is how the script came out from Murph.ai.
Because I've been to a million auditions and the same thing happens every time. Where I get interrupted because someone wants to get a sandwich. Or I'm crying and they start laughing. Or there's people sitting in the waiting room, and they're like me but prettier and better at the... Because maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe I'm one of those people that has always wanted to do it, but it's like a pipe dream for me. You change your dreams and then you grow up. Maybe I'm one of those people and I'm not supposed to. And I can go back to school and I can find something else that I'm supposed to do. 'Cause I left to do that, and it's been 6 years and I don't want to do it anymore.
A couple of extra great paid tools you might consider are Speechify.com or Natural Reader. They all have pretty amazing AI voices. Okay, so now it's time to move on to Act 3 of our tutorial, and that is filming in-world at Mona and how to screen record with one avatar. But before we can jump into World and start recording, we're going to need an actual way to record our footage. And to do this, we're going to need to pick a screen recorder, and that's a piece of software. So there's lots of good options out there and pieces of software, but I personally prefer to use NVIDIA's Shadowplay. That's a recorder which is built into the GeForce Experience software. But in order to use this, you're going to need a computer with a NVIDIA graphics card. The software is free, but not everyone is going to have access to this. So with that in mind, for today, I'm going to be covering the basics of a free piece of software called OBS Studio. So you can download OBS from their website, which is obsproject.com. Okay, so immediately you can see that there are download options for both Mac and PC, and you're going to want to pick one of these and basically install it like any other piece of software. So once it's downloaded, let's get the application open and take a look around. So when you open up the software, you'll be confronted by this auto configuration wizard. And OBS is used for not just recording, but also streaming. You can optimize this however you like, but for this tutorial, we're just going to be using it for recording, and I will not be streaming. So the second one, optimize just for recording, I will not be streaming. And I'm going to click next. Okay, then the second one is, what is our base canvas resolution? So we are going to be editing just in normal HD for this, so 1920 by 1080, and the FPS, let's set that to 30. Okay, cool, and then I'm going to click next. And then the final results is going to tell me what my different encoders are, and I'm going to be recording in high quality, medium file size. These are all pretty good settings, so I'm going to click apply. Okay, so this is the user interface of OBS, so it's not as scary as it looks. And remember, because we're recording, we're not streaming, so there's quite a lot of features in here we just won't be using. So let's keep it nice and simple. So we're going to be skipping scenes, we'll be using sources in a minute, we'll be looking at audio mixer, and then we're going to be looking at some basic settings. But let's head over to sources. So this is like what we're actually recording, which screen we're recording. So I'm going to click this little plus icon. And then I'm going to go up here to display capture. I'm going to call this Mona screen. That'll do for now. And I'm going to click OK. Right, and now what it's going to do is going to try and say, what monitor do I want to select? See, I've got 3 monitors, and I've got 3 4K monitors, as you can see the resolution here. I know which one I want to select, and it is this bottom one here. If you've only got one, you'll only have one here, so it's even easier. And as you can see, there is a Mona world on my 3rd screen. So I do not want to capture cursor, so that's really important. Let's click OK. Right, so the first thing you're going to notice is that this is not capturing everything. And the reason for that is because our base canvas, what we're recording, is 1920 by 1080p, so HD. And because my screen is a 4K monitor, what we need to do is basically grab this little icon here and shrink it down until it fits. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so I've made it too small, and I will put this on here. And it does snap, which is really nice. Okay, so we have what we need from the video side. It's recording my 3rd screen, or rather it's all set up ready to record my 3rd screen. Let's take a quick look at audio. So if you look down here, we've got desktop audio and we've got our mic audio. It's actually already picking up my microphone, so you can change this however you want. If you go to properties, and you can change the microphone, whichever one you want to use. So personally, I don't want to record my microphone for this. I just want video. But if you want to record your audio with your video, that's completely up to you. But for now, I'm just going to pull this all the way down so it's not recording my my microphone. So desktop audio is the audio coming from your PC, and in this case, it's my Chrome browser with the Mona world. So the reason that's not showing any audio right now is because I have the tab muted in Chrome. So I'm just going to unmute that, and you should hear something. There we go. You should see come back to here. Oh, I had it all the way down. So you can see the levels pinging up and down to know we've got audio, which is nice. Okay, cool. I'm just going to go ahead and mute that again. Brilliant. So as it happens, I don't want any audio at all. So I'm going to have both of these down. Okay, so that's audio. Now, the last thing we need to do is head over to the settings menu. So you click this settings button down on the right-hand side of the screen. Okay, so let's keep this quite simple, okay, and go with some of the defaults. So what we're going to do is we're going to head down to our outputs, and we can ignore the streaming section, so we're going to go straight for recording. This is telling me the recording path where it's going to record. It's all by default. It's put high quality medium file format. If you remember, that's from the wizard at the beginning when we opened it. It's kind of set this for us. But importantly, this is telling me it's going to record the format in MKV. You can record in any of these, whatever you want. Personally, I prefer just to stick to MP4. It's just my preference. This will say that recording saved to MP4 will be unrecoverable if the file cannot be finalized. Considering we only record in small chunks, that's not too much of a problem. This is more of an issue if you're doing, a 2-hour stream. There are better formats for that, but for us, MP4 is perfectly good. Let's leave these settings the way they are. There's lots of tutorials online if you really want to get into the weeds of OBS. There's a lot of cool stuff you can do, but this should be fine for what we need. Okay, and that's pretty much it for the very basics of OBS. But let's just have a quick check on video. So just to check, our base canvas is 1920 by 1080, which is 69 aspect ratio, and the output scaled is basically the same, so that is right, and our frames per second is 30. So yeah, that seems pretty good to me. And click apply, and okay. Okay, so that is everything that we need from the settings and the audio and the sources to start recording. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to head down to the bottom right hand of my screen, and I'm going to click start recording. So now on my second monitor, I'm going to go into my Mona world and control my avatar. You can do this on a single screen. You don't need multiple monitors. It just means tabbing out of OBS into Mona. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to run around. That should be plenty. So I'm going to come back into into OBS and click stop recording. Right, and then I'm just going to have a check to see if it has recorded. So I'm going to pull up that file. Okay, here it is, and press play. I'm just going to skip on a little bit. There we go. And yeah, so it has recorded and the quality is pretty good for the default settings. So excellent. And there you have it. That is kind of the basics of OBS. Shall we move into the Monaverse now and record some of our footage? Okay, so here we are in Mona and we're ready to record the footage for our tutorial monologue. So remember, we chose the monologue from the film La La Land, and this is the fun part where we get to shoot the actual footage for the monologue. So there's a few things we need to consider here, including what shots we want to use and what emotes we plan to have the avatars or the actors do during the scene. So at this point in production, I like to reference a script and audio recording again, just as a kind of reminder of what's happening in the scene and just so you can get a good feel for the scene. So here is the audio again to help us with those decisions.
Because I've been to a million auditions and the same thing happens every time. Where I get interrupted because someone wants to get a sandwich. Or I'm crying and they start laughing. Or there's people sitting in the waiting room and they're like me but prettier and better at the... Because maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe I'm one of those people that has always wanted to do it, but it's like a pipe dream for me. You change your dreams and then you grow up. Maybe I'm one of those people and I'm not supposed to. And I can go back to school and I can find something else that I'm supposed to do. 'Cause I left to do that. And it's been 6 years and I don't want to do it anymore.
Okay, so I like to break things down into set, actors, cameras, and recording. So I'm just going to quickly go over these sections, then we're going to start to record our scene. So for our set, that's our location, we first need to pick our Mona space. And in this case, I've chosen the party house space by Meta Resident. So the next thing we have to think about is our actor, and I've chosen this Ready Player Me avatar. And a part of this actor section is we need to decide what the actor is actually going to do, and in this case what emotes the character might be using. So using the emote wheel, I've chosen these 3. So that's the nice surprise, the reaching out, and the rubbing shoulders pose. And I might kind of throw in a couple of emojis in there just for fun as well. Okay, and then onto our camera section for considerations. So now what I mean by this is what camera angles we're going to use. So camera angles are really, really important in film, obviously. Now, if you want, you could just have a single camera angle for all the way through the scene. And if you want to do that, that's completely up to you. But that's perhaps a little boring for your audience. So with that in mind, I want to have a variety of camera angles that we can choose from later in the edit. And the best ways to get better camera angles in Mona is to essentially have an actor and a cameraman. To get set up for the cameraman, there's a handy hotkey in Mona that allows you to go from third-person perspective to first-person perspective. The first-person perspective will be the screen you're recording, and that hotkey is V, the V key. So you can see it kind of goes to that first-person perspective. Okay. Cool. So the problem is now we don't have an actor in our shot because we're the cameraman. So we can get around this problem in a few different ways. So firstly, either ask a friend to jump into the Monaverse with you, so you can be the cameraman recording your screen and they can be the actor. That's quite easy to get your head around. Or what we could do, and this is slightly more complicated, we can open another tab in our browser and have 2 versions of Mona running at the same time. There's a couple of issues here. Firstly, you'll need a fast computer to run more than one Mona tab at the same time. And secondly, you're going to need another monitor screen so you can have the actor on screen and the cameraman on another. If you don't have another monitor, you're definitely going to need to ask a friend to be your actor. Okay, so as I have another monitor, I am going to come down to the bottom of the UI and click Host a Hangout. And what that's going to do is it's going to load me back in and it's going to copy the Hangout link to the clipboard. And if you need to get that again, you can click the share button and it copies to your clipboard. What I'm going to do is I'm going to open a new tab and paste that in. And then what will happen is it will load in And then boom, there is now 2 paradoxes. So what I'm going to do for now is you can see that there are 2 tabs. I'm just going to move this character over here. If I come to this tab, I'm going to be the cameraman, so this is going to be my cameraman, and this tab is going to be my actor. So let's get my actor roughly in place. So let's put her here. Okay, so if this is my cameraman, let's go to press the V key to go to first person perspective. There we go. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pull the actor tab onto my other screen. So I'm just going to pull this over here. So you won't be able to see it, but that's fine. And it means now, and you'll have to trust me on this, on my other screen, I am going to press the C key. Oh, moved a little bit there. I'm going to press the C key, and I'm going to do a little dance. And as you can see, you guys did not see the emote wheel pop up. I saw it on my actor screen. So that's perfect. Okay, so I know that was probably a lot to take in, but I promise you it's really not super difficult. Either ask a friend to be your actor, or open a new Mona tab on another monitor. It's that simple. Okay, so now the last section before we start picking some shots is recording. And all this is a quick checklist for recording, and that includes, let's go back to my cameraman, a couple of hotkeys. So firstly, I like to go full screen, so F11. That just gets rid of the tabs at the top. I like to press the U key, which gets rid of the UI at the bottom. And I like to press the I key, which gets rid of that little dot in the middle. And then finally, I want to press Control minus. We spoke about this earlier, and it shrinks that chat box all the way down. And I very nearly forgot, you can now in Mona press the N key to remove the name tag above the actor's name. There we go. And they are our final checks before we start recording. And also, the main thing is, remember to actually press record in OBS. So that's that's pretty helpful. Okay, so now finally on to the fun part, and we're going to start picking some of our camera angles. So just to make this a bit quicker, I'm going to keep the actor standing still. And this is the part where you should consider your shot list. It's generally a good idea to kind of have an idea in your mind of what the various shots are going to be, just so the edit makes sense later. So I've chosen a few different camera angles, and we're going to record them one at a time, starting with this one. So I've chosen a nice simple mid shot, and I'm going to frame this quite nicely, considering like the rule of thirds and her eye line. And then we're going to run through the various emotes on my actor tab, so we can see that happening on my cameraman screen. So I've checked all my hotkeys, the UI is off, the name tag is off, all of that stuff done, and importantly, I am recording in OBS. Please do not forget to press record. It's kind of important. Okay, so on my actor tab, which is off screen, I'm going to press the C key. And I'm going to start running through some of these emotes. So the first one we're going to start with is Nice Surprise. So there we go. We'll see on my camera screen that she is doing the emote. There we go. That should be good. I'm going to run to my second emote, which is Reaching Out. There we go. That's quite nice. Do that one more time. And I'm going to do one more, which is the Rubbing Shoulders. And that's quite nice. Just before we move on, there's one other little tip that I can give you to kind of give a little bit more variety to your actor's performance. Obviously they're digital, but we have emojis and we have emotes, but we can do another little trick. So I'm going to pull the actor tab over. So on your actor tab, if you press the V key and go into first person, if you kind of wiggle your mouse left and right a little bit, you can actually, well, if I pull this tab over again, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm in first person on my actor tab. Watch the character. They do like a little movement. You can't move up and down, but you can move left and right. And this just kind of helps a little bit, you know, if a character's talking, you know, it might give the illusion of like a little bit of body movement. So yeah, we'll keep this shot in here. We're recording. We might use this later. Yeah. Okay, so that is the first shot done. I'm pretty happy with it. Let's go find our second shot. I'm going to leave the actor here and just move my cameraman. So I'm going to do the same process of picking my next few camera shots and running through the emotes just as I did for the mid shot. I'm not going to make you sit through all of that again for each shot. So let's just cut here to my next shot, which is a slightly wider shot. Okay, you get the idea. And then I'm going to choose a shot from above. And then I think I'm going to choose a shot from the side. Okay, so that should be enough basic shots for now. If you want to add movement to your shots, you have a couple of options. So you can simply use your arrow keys to move the cameraman, but the speed is pretty fast. So a massive tip here is to use a gamepad. And what I mean by that is a games controller, like an Xbox or a PlayStation controller. With a controller, you can move the thumbsticks just a tiny amount and you'll start to move slowly. And this works for both horizontal and vertical movements. So you'll get something like this with a controller. So you'll need to buy a controller that can work with a computer specifically. I actually use an old 360 controller. It's a wireless controller, and I bought a wireless Bluetooth adapter for it, which you can pick up pretty cheap. Generally, you can use an old wireless controller you have laying around and buy a cheap wireless adapter for around $20, something like that. They're not that expensive. Now, if you don't want to spend money, there is a little cheat you can use. If you walk your cameraman into a hard surface, you can kind of sometimes angle the camera in such a way that it slowly slides along the surface to create this kind of slow movement. It's certainly a hack, but it does work, and you can collect shots like this. Okay, so I've gone ahead and collected a couple more moving shots for the scene, so I'm pretty happy with a decent selection of shots in the bag. So we can officially say that's a wrap on this virtual shoot, and we can now move on to the fourth act of the tutorial, which is editing together voiceover and in-world scenes. Welcome to the video editing act of the tutorial. So, regardless of if you're using a Mac or a PC, or perhaps editing on your phone or a tablet, you're going to need to choose a piece of video editing software or an application. There's absolutely loads of good options out there, some paid options, but some good free options too. There can be a bit of a learning curve for some of the more professional options like Adobe Premiere Pro or Apple's Final Cut Pro. So if you've never used any video editing software before, I would strongly recommend that you take a look at some of the free options, as they tend to be kind of a bit simpler to get your head around. So one amazing piece of free and reasonably easy to learn video editing software is Adobe Rush. It's available on PC and Mac, and you can also use it on your phone or your tablet. So yeah, definitely look at that. For a list of possible options for video editing software, check out the workshop links document that we've put together. So for this tutorial, I'm going to be using a paid option. I choose Adobe Premiere Pro, and this is the software I use every day, and it's what I'm just most comfortable with, really. That's just my preference. So, and this tutorial is it's not going to be an extensive how to use Premiere Pro, simply because we're going to need a lot more than 15 minutes or so to cover all of that. So that there's so many tutorials online for video editing in whichever piece of software you choose, so do some research and don't worry too much about exactly how Premiere Pro works today. Just follow along and get a feel for the creative decisions and kind of the workflows that we're doing today in order to make our monologue together. So just before we dive into Premiere Pro, I wanted to show you my kind of very basic workflow system for video. This is my preference, this is how I do it. Everyone does it differently, so it's completely up to you. But I'm just going to keep it simple for you guys now. So in this folder, which you can see is Mona Workshop 3 tutorial folder, I have 4 folders. The first one I have Adobe files, so that's where I'm going to save my project. Exports is when we come to finally export the final video, that's going to live there. Footage is all of our footage that we gathered. This is where I recorded to, and then we have music, and we could probably also add in an audio section as well. So if you look in the footage section, here are all my different shots from earlier, and I've kind of named them as well. It really helps to kind of name these just so you know what you're dealing with in the edit. Okay, cool. So with that, I'm going to start at Premiere Pro. Let's get going. Okay, so as I said, don't worry too much about exactly what I'm doing in Premiere Pro, but we're going to speed along through this, but you'll get the rough idea. So I'm going to go to New Project, and let's call this Mona Workshop Free Tutorial. Okay. And this is where my other folder came in handy. So I'm going to choose the location, and then I'm going to go down to my PC. I'm just going to find that folder, which is this Mona Workshop Free folder. And I'm going to put this in Adobe files, and I'm going to put that there. Brilliant. So you can import footage here if you really want to. I don't personally like to. I like to just get straight in. So I'm going to click Create. And this is going to throw us straight into Premiere Pro. And here we go. So I'll give you a very quick tour here. So the main area we're going to be looking at first is this is our media area. So we're going to be importing some footage. We'll do that in a second. On the right here is our timeline, which you'll see kind of come to life shortly. The top left here is our source monitor. So when we this is where we'll preview our footage before we edit it, or whilst we're editing it rather. And this program monitor is actually what the final video is going to look like. So you'll see your edited video of all the different clips in here. So let's get going. Actually, the first thing I like to do in here is more workflow stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to right click in this box, and I'm going to go new bin. I'm going to type in footage. So this is where all my footage is going to live, and I'm going to do the same for music and audio, and that's it for now. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to go into this footage folder, and basically I'm going to bring in all of my footage that we recorded before. So I'm going to right click, and I'm going to go import, and here we go. So I've already done this, so it knows what folder I'm using, but it's the Mona Workshop Free tutorial folder, and I'm basically going to select everything and click open. So that is now loaded all of these in. So if I quickly double click one of these, there we go. It previews up here in our source monitor. And you can move this little timeline. See this little blue thing? This kind of scrubs through the footage, but you can also press the spacebar, or you can press, the little play and stop button here. There we go. So you can see our actor doing her thing. And I'm going to scrub through so you can kind of find any nice parts of it you like. So taking a look at another one. Yep, there you go. So that's a good example of the source monitor. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm now in my footage folder, but I can go back to the project folder here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into audio, and I want to import the audio that we recorded for our monologue. So I'm going to right click here, and I'm going to click import, and I'm going to go back out into my audio folder. Off camera I just put that track in, but this is the audio from Murph. Brilliant. So we now have our audio and we have our video imported. So the first thing I like to do, for this monologue, is I'm going to drag the audio into the timeline. Okay, and there you go. So you can see the audio is in here. I'm just going to double click. So these are different tracks. So if you wanted multiple different layers of audio, you've got different layers here. But we're going to stick to one for now. And I'm just going to double click this. There we go, and it expands it. I might drag that out a little further so we can see. Now, if I press this up here,
because I've been to a million editions and the same thing happens every time.
You should see the audio coming up along here, and you should be able to hear it. I like to press the space bar. It's just much quicker than going up here and pressing the play. Okay, cool. So I'm going to head back to this area over here. What it's done is it's made a sequence which is in this timeline, but it's put it in this audio folder. So I'm just going to drag this sequence back into the project folder so it's out here. So this is our actual sequence. So you can see MSF Workshop Free, and up here in our timeline, we're working on this sequence, which is MSF Workshop Free. I'm just going to right click and rename this main edit, basically so we know where to find it. Okay, so to do with this sequence, what I want to do before I start putting footage in is I want to check the sequence settings. So the way you do that is you head up to the top here on the bar and it says sequence. So I'm going to left click that, and right at the top is sequence settings. Okay, so this tells us what the settings for the sequence is, and in this situation we have time base, so that is the frames per second. I'm going to put that to 30 because I know that we shot in 30 frames per second, and we want to be exporting later in 1920 by 1080, so this is kind of like our canvas size, and that's pretty good. So I'm going to click OK. So now that's done and out the way, let's start having a look at some of our shots, shall we? Okay, so remember we have to go to our footage folder, and I'm just going to expand this out a little bit so you can see it a little bit better. So let's pick a shot. Let's start with number 1, shall we? As I said, you can scroll around, which is scrubbing. Now, if I want to, let's just say I want just as she's lifting up this arm. So what you can do is you can, in Premiere, you can mark your in and out, which is these 2 buttons here. So you have an in. Now, you'll see this pop up. And so that's saying I'm taking the footage from this exact point. Right, now let's press play in here. So I'm going to press play. And I want... There we go, just when she puts her arm down. And then I'm going to go here and press this little mark out button. And you can press the I or the O for this. Now, it's selected just this section. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this little drag video only. If I want to take everything, if this had audio, I could just drag and drop it into my timeline. But I just want the video. Drag and drop onto my timeline. Boom, there we go. Right, I'm just going to press play
because
for you.
I've been to a million editions and the same thing happens
There we go. Did you see that it went black? So what it means is basically the clip's ended, but we can actually extend that. So we're not locked into what we originally chose. Now we know how to select parts of our shot that we recorded, we can start putting together the edit together. So this part is completely up to you. Be as creative as you'd like and use whichever parts of the clips you'd like in whichever order you'd like. So, right, I'm just going to run you through one very quickly. I know that I want to use the roof shot with the slow move in as our establishing shot. So let's quickly find that. So I'm going to go to my footage. Okay, so here it is. And I'm going to add from here to about here in. That looks pretty good. And I'm going to pull that into here. And I'm going to delete this. I'm just going to move this shot over here. I'm going to highlight these and move them over. So it looks something like this. There you go. So you can see it cuts from one shot to another. Then simply just choose your next shots and keep going. So there's loads of editing styles out there in terms of edit pacing and when to use certain shots and when not to. If you're new to editing, just watch some dedicated tutorials on editing or watch some films, get some inspiration. But generally though, an edit should feel natural. Try to consider continuity. So don't cut halfway through an emote's animation unless you're cutting to another angle of the same emote happening at the same time. So let me just give you a quick example of that. Okay, so watch this. So one shot and it cuts to another one and it's a bit abrupt, right? So now we're going to give you another example. So this is the first shot, she lifts her arm and we cut to another one. Another shot and her arm is in exactly the same place. So that is continuity and it means that the shots kind of match up, which is quite nice. So you can break continuity like this if you want to, but that's certainly an artistic choice. But I'd recommend avoiding that unless you're comfortable with editing and you kind of have a clear idea of style in your mind first. So I've gone ahead and edited a whole bunch of shots together. Remember, you can do this however you'd like. Just try and keep the audience engaged with a variety of shots. So just watch a couple of shots here.
Because I've been to a million editions and the same thing happens every time. Where I get interrupted because someone wants to get a sandwich. Or I'm crying and they start laughing.
There you go, you get the idea. So I've done lots of different shots. And it looks quite good. So once you've got your edit draft together, there's a few extra bits that you might consider. So I won't cover exactly how to do them today, but if you're new to editing, write some of these down and do some research later. So one of the things is you could do is add transitions, even simple transitions like this. There you go. Did you see that? A transition could also be a fade in from the start as well. Another thing you could do is add subtle zooms to your edit, so to give the illusion of movement to your static angles. So something like this, I've just added a slight zoom. There we go, and this is from our static angle. You can add some music or sound effects to your scene. So that's done exactly the same way as your voiceover audio. Just kind of bring it in as a file. So remember here to raise or lower the volume to a comfortable level. Try not to have the volume too loud. YouTube has a great selection of free music and sound effects in their YouTube studio, but we'll add some more music resources to the documents. And lastly, you might consider doing some color grading to kind of further enhance your footage. In this case, I've made this shot a little bit colder, a little bit more blue, because it's meant to be like an emotional scene. So as you can see, something like this. So I'll show you the final film in just a second, but I've added a bit of a color grade, I've added some music, a couple of transitions, and it's pretty much ready to go. So the first thing I'm going to do is just make sure that we have our in and out point selected. So this is what it's going to render. So I've gone to the beginning and I've pressed I for our in point, and then I'm going to go right to the very end. I'm just going to zoom in with the plus, and I'm going to find the end, and I've pressed the out key here. So you can see this is what it's going to render. So that's good. Now let's go up to the export settings. Okay, let's name this at the very top. Let's call this final export. We can call it whatever you want. And we're going to save it in our exports folder. Okay, so then down along the bottom here, it's a H.264 file. It's 1080, which is good. It's 30 frames, and it's going to be coming out at about 19 megabits a second. So that's perfectly fine. Coming out at about 104 megabytes. So what we're going to do is we're going to click export. That'll run through, and then it'll be done. So when the video is complete, you'll need to submit to Mona by sending us a private YouTube link. And you'll need to make sure that it has subtitles included. That's not something we're going to cover here today, but you can do it in Premiere and other software. But yeah, YouTube actually has a really great built-in subtitle editor within their YouTube studio, and that's pretty easy. So, and we'll drop a tutorial for the YouTube subtitle editor in the documents. Okay, without further ado, let's watch the final video.
Because I've been to a million auditions and the same thing happens every time. Where I get interrupted because someone wants to get a sandwich. Or I'm crying and they start laughing. Or there's people sitting in the waiting room and they're like me but prettier and better at because maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe I'm one of those people that has always wanted to do it, but it's like a pipe dream for me. You change your dreams and then you grow up. Maybe I'm one of those people and I'm not supposed to. And I can go back to school and I can find something else that I'm supposed to do. 'Cause I left to do that. And it's been 6 years and I don't want to do it anymore.
And there you have it, our own edited monologue using footage captured from Mona. So I'm just going to recap the tutorial a little bit. So we gave you an orientation of Mona, including logging in and navigating the site to find some cool spaces. We learned about some useful hotkeys in Mona spaces, and we also showed you some emotes and emojis that you can use. We went on to learn about recording our own audio for our monologues, and hopefully that gave you some inspiration for maybe using some AI text-to-voice tools. Next, we went over the basics of screen recording in OBS, and then we had a crash course in filming in Mona using emotes and different shooting methods like using the actor and camera method. And lastly, we delved into ways that you can sort your editing workflow and how you can put together a scene in a video editing software. Okay, so I'd like to end with my top 5 tips for creating a great monologue in Mona. So starting with number 5, hunt for some amazing spaces to film in and find your perfect avatar. Right, so remember that there are so many amazing Mona spaces, so don't just go to the front page, you know, really look through the marketplace and see what there is. Remember, you can film in any of them. And as for avatars, definitely explore the Ready Player Me avatars, but also consider using VRM avatars as well. Number 4 is plan your production workflow for filming. So that's everything from knowing what audio recording software you'll use, what screen recording software to use, and which editing software that you want to use to put the final video together with. Number 3 is plan out your film story properly. So have a script, have a shot list with ideas for shots, and know what's going to happen in your scene so you can pick those emotes and emojis that really work for your film. Number 2 is give yourself enough time. Virtual production takes a lot of it, and there's always hiccups and there's always slowdowns. There's no such thing as a perfect shoot, okay? And don't forget to factor in the time to get the subtitles complete after you finish the film. And that brings us to number 1, which is my top tip for creating a great monologue in Mona, and that is consider purchasing a wireless gamepad that you can plug into your computer. This is going to unlock a world of extra camera movements and elevate your production quality massively. Okay, that concludes our workshop for today. So I've had a blast, and honestly we can't wait to see all of the films that you guys create. If you have any questions on anything I've presented today, feel free to add your questions in the comments below. Or you can join our Discord. In the Discord, find the channel Mona Shorts Fest and then tag Workshop Free along with your questions and we'll get back to you. Okay, so thanks for watching this video, and do check out our other tutorials in our Builder Tutorials playlist on YouTube.